Okay, everybody, welcome. This is our most recent segment of Gersh Talks. And for those of you joining us for the first time, this is really just an opportunity for stakeholders and anybody who's interested in impacting students and education to come together to meet with special guests. Today, we have a very special guest, and I say that every time. Each guest is special in their own right, but this particular guest is extra special. He's on the front lines working daily with students, and our guests will bring an interesting perspective, and we'll also have some fun along the way. And we'll finish up by having a quick 5 question laser round at the end. So, without further ado, I would like to go ahead and have the guests introduce themselves. And so, guests, when you're ready, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Arenz. I am the 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year. I'm a music teacher in the Rochester City School District, where I've been teaching for just over 10 years.
Zach is magnetic. He's simultaneously incredibly warm, incredibly welcoming, incredibly home-like for the students.
Can we go see Mr. Arenz during lunch? Can we go see him during math, ELA? The students always want to be with him. He brings that sense of warmth and love.
His students beam when they talk about him. They just love him.
Everybody loves Mr. Arenz. He's the guy that a lot of my kids, when they're having a hard time, will say, can I go sit with Mr. Arenz for a little while?
He's patient, he watches, he listens, and then he figures out how he's going to help you.
He's committed to their growth, not only when they're in these walls of 54, but beyond.
I always joke that my favorite part of the day is arrival. I get to just check in with the kids every morning, make sure that they're having a good day. And if they're not, what can I do to get them ready for the day?
I've been teaching music in various forms just a little bit longer than that. I started my career in Sweden. I was teaching at a bilingual school, teaching middle school. And when I moved back into New York, I started teaching K-6 music. I teach general music, classroom music, band, small ensembles, and the works. I love it. And all that work has brought me here today.
So, your first teaching experience was in Sweden?
Yes, my first teaching was in Sweden. While I was in grad school, I took an interview just to kind of get my feet wet. Back in 2012 was the height of that teaching bubble, and I really wanted to get as much interview practice as I could. So I took what I thought at the time was just a for fun interview, just an opportunity to get my feet wet, get a little bit of practice in there. And it worked out in my favor, I suppose. That school year, I ended up moving over to Sweden. I was living about an hour outside Stockholm, teaching middle school music.
And so you were doing your graduate work while you were in Sweden?
No, I finished that. I went right. I did my undergrad through my graduate work, and then as soon as I finished that, I moved off to Sweden.
Well, that's an interesting start. Why didn't you stay in Sweden?
I would have loved to, but it was difficult being away from family and friends, being completely immersed in a new culture. Like I said again, I got my feet wet in teaching. I did a year. Would I have loved to do longer? Absolutely. But it was just getting back. I wanted to get back into the New York State retirement system. I wanted to be here doing that work. When I came back, I started working immediately in the Rochester City School District.
And you mentioned the culture in Sweden?
Yeah, just a little bit different. It's a very classic Scandinavian country. So, but things are just different. One of the first things that I remember absolutely losing myself over was just trying to find familiar, good food. Not saying that the food there was bad. No, definitely not. But, shopping on the shelves here, what brands you like, what brands you don't like. Over there, I had no idea. So I'm just kind of buying whatever was cheapest off the shelf, which should have been a lesson learned, I think. But I just didn't, that culture shock of moving into a whole new place. You're looking around, you don't see words you're familiar with. You don't hear announcements that you recognize immediately. But I also think that that was a really cool opportunity in reflection for me to kind of think about where students might be in their own journey in school, whether it be a physical culture shock, they're moving from a new country and coming into our classrooms, or maybe they're just new in the music culture, they're learning things that they're not familiar with. So it's an interesting opportunity to reflect on and kind of see how I grew through that moment.
And so you teach K through 6 in Rochester?
Yeah, now I'm a K-6 music teacher. I teach general music, band, ukulele ensemble. I have some modern band ensembles. So it's an exciting place. I love it up there.
Why K through 6? Why not high school?
Why not high school? You know, honestly, the original dream included high school, but elementary school was where the job offer was when I first came back. And I remember the first day I was told, Zach, you're moving from a 4 to 6 band position, and now you're going to be doing K-6 general music. And I remember that moment of, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. This isn't what I signed up for. But really, after I've been teaching general music now for about 8 years, I love it. I love the opportunity to get to know the kids their first day of school when they walk in. You know, they might be 5 or 6 years old in kindergarten, but then I get to use that relationship and kind of hook, line, and sinker them into the band position when they get older. And it just creates a great culture. I get to know the kids for 7 years. It's the best.
And what's the makeup of the kids in the classroom, the demographics?
The demographics in my particular school, I teach a fairly wide variety of students. You know, of course, they're ranging from about 5 to 12 years old. I teach in a district where the majority race is are people of color. White folks like myself, I am a minority in the school population, but not in the teaching population, which is an interesting dynamic. It's a dynamic that I would like to see highlighted a little bit more and get more teachers of color into our classrooms so that we can see more representation. I think representation in our classrooms is super important.
So white guy walks in to work with these students and wants to introduce them to the ukulele. How does that go?
It's difficult the first couple of years. You know, I'm not gonna lie and kind of beat around that. It was tricky at first, but I think that that is difficult in any situation. When you're new in any program, when you're new in any school, when you're new in any community, there's that initial hesitation. You know, I don't know you, you don't know me, but the best thing that we can both do, or especially me as the leader in that classroom, I can pull down some of my walls and layers and start to show a little bit more about who I am. A little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of honesty goes a long way in those first couple of years. So as that relationship has evolved, you know, like I said, now I've known my 6th graders. I've known them since they were in kindergarten. They'll walk to the end of the earth, but I'll be walking right by their side. And I think that it's a powerful dynamic. But I don't forget, I don't forget about those other sensitive subjects. It's something important something to be mindful of. But it's not the definition of our relationship.
My research work focuses on culturally responsive pedagogy. And the first thing I like to do is I like to draw a line between CRT, which seems to be the talking point in the news, and then culturally responsive pedagogy. And the reason why I chose that is because I work in a large comprehensive high school in Brooklyn, where we have a very diverse population, not only just from Brooklyn, but around the world. And I think that's why we try to find strategies to be vulnerable and make those connections with the students. So, what is your music background? Were you a performer? Is it just something you were interested in?
Yeah, when I got into music, I was in 4th grade. That was my first band experience. A product of the New York public education system. I was involved in general music classes from kindergarten, but I really started to love it when I was in 4th grade. I was 10 years old, and Mr. DePaulo, my elementary school band teacher, he was willing to give me a clarinet that summer, and I absolutely loved it. It was something that I think always came very natural. It felt very, I don't want to say that music was simple, but it was something that I really connected with and got quickly. Um, so just kind of that evolution starting at 10 years old, I kind of weaseled my way around the music department. I ended up with a bassoon in my hands when I was in ninth grade, I believe. And that's kind of where I really picked up my track for being a music educator. I grew up in a household of educators. My mom was a teacher. My sister is currently a teacher. Maybe teaching is just in my blood, but it was kind of a cool moment when I was in high school and I realized, oh my gosh, I could combine music and teaching at the same time and be a music teacher. This is great. um, so yeah, that was kind of my trajectory. So yes, I'm a performer. I still perform a little bit locally, not anything crazy, but I play in a local wind ensemble.
And you mentioned earlier the word connection and music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, connections bring us all together. Isn't that the definition? I think music has a really special and unique way to build connections between people. I love teaching a lot of the nonverbal cues that go into a music performance, talking about the ways that a keyboard player needs to communicate with the bass player and the drummer and the singer. And those connections have to be drawn across the entire performance. But I love when we're practicing that, I'll verbalize those communication cues at first, and the kids all kind of look at you like, "Hey, we were doing really good. Why'd you yell in the middle of this?" And it's to really draw attention to the fact that we do need to rely on those nonverbal cues. And I think with that nonverbal communication, the kids, they start to understand the relationship that they've built a lot better. And in a small group setting, we have a really unique opportunity to build a very close bond. I mean, maybe only among 4 or 5 kids who don't know each other. They're coming from various walks of life, but over the course of 10 months to see them take like their band selfie at the end of a concert is really cool. Yeah, I saw your smile. It's a really cool moment for them, and to kind of know that they'll have that in their heart and soul forever is very special.
What about who you are as a person on a personal level and your connection to music?
Who I am personally connected to music. Music is something that's always lived beside me. I haven't really gone anywhere where music wasn't a part of my life. I love being involved in music. I love doing it. I don't always love listening to it, which a lot of people kind of laugh about, like, Zach, you're the music teacher, but you don't love listening to music. I do listen to music on the side, if it's in the background, but that's kind of where I've always kept it. I also really cherish my quiet time in the car on my way home from work, kind of just a moment to decompress, reflect on the day, see how things went, maybe make a couple of phone calls to different people, but just being a consumer of music, but also being able to be a performer and staying involved in that connection piece. When 30, 40 strangers all pick up an instrument at the same time and a conductor gives a downbeat, that moment is magic. It's very, very cool.
The connection that I draw to music is, I think, based on emotions. We do or listen to different genres of music. I listen to everything from hip hop to techno if I needed some oomph before I go to the gym. I also really enjoy listening to movie soundtracks, largely by John Williams and others. So I think the connection to music is really one of emotion, and then one amongst people being able to collaborate on a particular piece, or just the joy of playing instruments. And so do you find that in your students, that they draw a real emotional connection to music?
Yeah, I think so. It is interesting to be the music teacher and to listen to them listen to music, or to listen to them talking about music. Um, I I do being a music teacher, I think when we're talking about pop music can get a little bit I don't want to say dicey, but
That's okay.
it
Teaching
can.
the teacher, it does get dicey.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at lyrics of some pop music.
a lot of
There's
lyrics.
yeah, there's that side of it. Um, and I'm in no way condoning or saying but I'm not making a blanket statement, but that
How do
is
you bridge the two, I think is the question.
yeah, and but that is music, and that music is valid. That that moment of when a kid brings me or I ask them, what are you listening to these days? And oh, Mr. Ends, we can't talk about it. I'm like, no, it's okay. Um, it is language. That's the deeper underlying messages. They certainly, yeah, they can get controversial. I get that. Um, I don't know that it completely influences a person's character. Um, I mean, maybe if some people did read as deep into their lyrics as we did into maybe other literature, that would be a pretty cool thing. But no, I think, but validating that student's music is also validating them, and just to say like it's fine. Like I might listen to that music also, and it it is what it is. I think that if music is art, art is supposed to draw controversy. Uh, it creates conversation.
I think across the board with school age students, whether it's elementary or high school, it's always tricky because I think it would be hard to just teach music theory and teach about Mozart and teach about others. And I think on the high school level, where we've really made some headway, is we have an audio production program, we have a podcast program. So I think that's certainly a way to bridge the two. And it's interesting because music through the years has crossed different as the kids would say, boomers, the music
Mhm.
that they grew up listening to is somewhat similar today. When Elvis first came out with his music, people thought it was X-rated and inappropriate,
Yeah,
and they thought it was going to create chaos among society. So it's not just today. It's music has always been a part of life. It's also been symbols of big historical movements throughout time. So it's interesting. There's always a place for music.
absolutely. Yeah.
Music is part of the storyline. I think so, some of the biggest events that have occurred have been the storyline has been influenced by music.
Yeah. I think
So
music is one of those ultimate human connections. Um, last week I had an opportunity to be at Google, and I was talking to a lot of the developers there about what the future of AI might look like in our schools.
I
And
was
and
just about to
that's
ask you that when you said Google.
it's a very interesting conversation, but one of the things that I kept saying is I think music is so unique to the human kind. I'm not sure there's a place for artificial intelligence in music, but I don't think it can ever replace it. And I think that's something very special. Like I said before, that connection that we humans might draw in a performance or that connection we feel when we're listening is not something that is easily replaceable by technology.
As a side note, I can't believe how fast AI picked up. It's almost in that
Yeah.
quickly.
And
You
I
said
think it's going to develop at an exponentially fast rate. It's going to be quite a situation to watch. It's going to be something interesting to be involved in. But staying on top of it is important. Saying not that you can always necessarily stay one step ahead, especially when things are developing at that lightning speed. Uh, but yeah, I think we have two options. We can turn our face and say, I don't want to, or we can embrace it and say, okay, what next? How can I use this to my advantage?
and you just mentioned AI and embracing its technological abilities in music.
Hmm.
Can you what's the role of AI in your mind and music? Or is there not a role? Or how do you embrace it?
I haven't had a whole lot of time, honestly, to really reflect on that. I think when we look at maybe it's something when you look at the total combinations of notes on a keyboard or the total combination of notes that come out of an orchestra. Um, Sometimes I wonder to what degree is the imagination limited.
Interesting.
Where we are sort of bound by our experience. We it's I think there's the idea of when you dream, you can't dream a face you've never seen before. We all know what a face looks like. Um, so maybe, possibly in that music space, we're using these artificial intelligences to create something unheard of before. Um, Experiencing sounds in a new way that maybe we haven't experienced. Uh, I think if we use AI in terms of writing, it might expand the way on which we write. We can't say artificial intelligence is the end all be all of a writing piece. We need to be taught how to think critically when it comes to artificial intelligence. We can't just have it writing essays for us. I know that that's a huge issue in our schools. Not that it's an issue yet. I'm sure that it is, but um, but we have to be able to teach students how to find AI is at our fingertips. At some point that same conversation was about something like a Google search engine. Well, what's it going to do to our libraries? Kids need to look at an encyclopedia. The same thing happened before with a calculator. No one's you need to be able to do math, and you're not going to be walking around with a calculator in your pocket. Yeah, I'm sure you have. I mean, my phone is sitting right in front of me. We do quite literally sit around with a calculator in our pocket, and a calculator that can do way more than add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Um, so I think we do have to develop that relationship with our kids. One of the most interesting things that I think about back from my student teaching experiences, I was student teaching in rural New York, and we were doing a staff development one day about how to use the internet in our lessons, and we needed to encourage our students to use the internet more. 14
How
years.
long have you been teaching, by the way?
That conversation was 14 years ago. That was 2010. And then I finished my master's degree in 2012. But yeah, for me growing up, the internet was almost always available. My real formative years of education from middle school through high school, the internet was available. When I think I got the first computer in my house when I was 9 years old. So I, in that conversation that we were having with student teaching, we were talking about the relationship that the professionals and the students had with things like the internet. And the principal at that time, he said, our students are growing up as native users to the internet. They will never know a world without it. Us, talking about the staff as a whole, are immigrants into that culture. And we owe it to our students to teach them in their native language, don't we? The native language being using Google as a resource, opening your world, looking at using the whole internet is crazy when your original thought process was bound to the A to Z of the Encyclopedia Britannica that your public school library owned. There's a whole world at our fingertips now. And now I find myself in that position of being an immigrant to the world of artificial intelligence. And my students, whether or not I like it, are going to grow up as native users of our artificial intelligence. I think I owe it to them to learn as much as I can so that I can teach them how to use it properly when they become my age.
What would happen if AI was to write an award-winning song?
It's interesting. I don't know. I don't know. I
Who
don't
gets
know
the
how that
credit?
works.
Who gets the credit? AI or the person that
Or the
typed
person
in?
who typed in the prompt. I don't know. That's fortunately I'm not on the board of the Grammy committee, so I don't get to make
Huh,
that decision.
good answer. Moving on. We have controversial topic. We have book bans in school. Should we be
Yeah.
banning certain music in schools?
Should we be banning? I think schools, like I just said, I think schools owe it to our kids to think critically about what the things that they're using are. Um, it's I think we owe it to our students to teach them how to use the resources that they have available, um, to, to use them. Should we be banning music? Should we be banning books? No, I don't think so.
I think the issue if you ban music is how whether you're in elementary school or high school or you're an adult, you talking about that connection to
Hmm.
music. And for a lot of us, there's music that speaks to our personal lives and
Yeah,
our circumstances. So to
yeah,
ban music, I think would be a tricky thing
yeah.
to do.
One other word that comes to mind, again, I worry about using this word because of the connotation that surrounds it. But I think we always have to be mindful of language. We're not, uh, we are not exposing kindergartners and five-year-olds to to profane language. We're not. Um, but I think when we use that idea of connectedness, we do owe it to our students to offer them a window into a world that maybe isn't their own, and to share experiences and the lived experiences of somebody else. Uh, so I think there's that line. We do owe it to open perspective, but at no point are we using poor judgment. No.
How does and this is a good question for all teachers, how does the state mandates and school district curriculum impact your music and connectedness? Are there a lot of restrictions on how you approach music education?
No, I think that being in a state like New York, I am trusted to be professional, and I think that's a really wonderful thing that I don't take for granted.
I
Um,
don't think it's a matter of professionalism. I think it's a matter of do you have to pick and choose certain to be open to music and connectedness? Do you ever feel limited by the curriculum to do
no,
so?
no, because I'm very no, and that's what That's what I was. I never feel bound by any particular. I mean, there is no song in my curriculum that I'm required to use. Um, it's it's I know that I'm very lucky to be here and to be able to teach concepts that are uh, that are important to the music education experience. I can come at them from multiple perspectives. Before we were talking about how do you bridge the gap for something like music theory? If I just come at my kids and say, this is a major chord, this is a minor chord, and we're going to follow this order of chords, that's fairly boring. There's maybe not a lot of connection there. So maybe I just introduce the song first. Whatever it is that we're learning, you introduce a song first to arrive at a particular idea. Then you break it down and you say, oh, well, so we did this and we arrived here. And in music theory, we might call it that. Um, and then, maybe you start that conversation of pop music and you arrive at it through a piece from the Romantic era, or you arrive at a piece from the Classical era. There's so many avenues to arrive at the same idea in music. I think that's a really interesting thing.
Today's elementary age students pretty precocious. What kind of questions do you get in
What
the
kind of
classroom?
questions do I get?
Like what kind of questions do you go, okay, that's interesting, and then you're formulating a response to that question. Have you been asked a question that caught you off guard,
Yeah, you
music
kind of did.
related?
I'm trying to think of. I had one that is very specifically coming to mind that I hadn't really planned for, but it was a fun conversation. We were discussing some of the music that they used during the civil rights era in a sixth grade lesson, and we were sharing pictures of Rosa Parks, and discussing leaders of the civil rights movement. And really upset that right now I'm blanking on her name, but there was another person who came before Rosa Parks. And one of my sixth graders, he brought it to my attention. He brought up her name. And immediately I was like, oh, I hadn't heard that before. Let's Google it real quick. So we went online and we did the we searched it up, and we found that this girl had done a similar thing to Rosa Parks, maybe a year, a few months ahead of time. And um, that moment was interesting because I could see kids thinking, and they realized that that girl could very well be the same age as their aunt or their grandmother or their mother. Um, and it brought something that for my students had felt so distant, where all the pictures are in black and white or recolored. It brought that very something that they just felt very disconnected from. They immediately were like, wow, that really wasn't that long ago. I know people who are that old.
I know people who are that old.
Yeah, and it was really that was a very special moment for me. I didn't that wasn't a part of my lesson. But I think to draw their connectedness into that changed the whole trajectory of their connection to those musics, because they weren't songs that someone in a textbook were singing. They were songs that people who they knew may have been singing. I think that's really cool.
You talked about music during the civil rights era, but you didn't talk about what specific songs.
One of the specific songs that we're doing right now, we have a song called "Keep Your Eye on the Prize," and it's just nice. We're singing it now when we talk about what those prizes are. And you know, they're not little tchotchkes that you get, but this idea of civil liberty, this idea of your civil rights. That's one of the songs that we're doing. And
If I YouTube that song, would I recognize it? Is it
I'm not
widely known?
I'm not sure. People who were involved in the civil rights movement, they may have it a little bit more. We do some songs. Some of the songs that a lot of people are very familiar with are songs from the Freedom Riders. You know, songs that were being sung on the buses in the South. Those, you know, there are recordings of those songs, and again, just to pull them up and make them relevant again is good.
And so music helps to make these historical events more impactful and draw a connection with the
Certainly,
young people.
certainly.
What kind of reactions do you see?
They range. You know, some kids, no matter what, they may not have that connection, and that's okay.
Mhm.
I appreciate their willingness to try. Some kids take it an extra step further, and they bring up those people. They bring up those connections that they've learned in another class or another subject area. I love that. That's one of the greatest things in those young minds, for you to really see in live play, to see them draw those connections is really magic. It's magical.
And so you do K through 6.
Mhm.
And did you mention band, or you were doing band at some point?
Yeah, I teach instrumental music. I teach the ukulele ensemble, and I teach it's fairly new in my building. We're in our third year, a group called Modern Band. So in the modern band, we're learning the modern instruments like guitar, bass, drum set.
And going back to the ukulele, do kids
Mhm.
understand it? Do they enjoy it?
Of course, yeah. Because of the size of the ukulele, we're able to introduce instruments like that much earlier. Um, and
I'm trying to envision it in my head.
yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I remember when I was in school, we did the recorder,
yeah, the
And
recorder. Yeah, those instruments are fun. It's often, you know, beyond those percussive instruments, you know, tambourines, maracas, maybe a xylophone. Um, that's the first instrument. And I'm not saying that those other instruments aren't instruments, but the ukulele might be something that they see on a wall for a couple of years. And I'm like, oh no, we're not quite big enough yet. Our hands need to grow a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, you can't put a clarinet in the hands of a second grader. They're just too little still. So that first moment builds them up. They start figuring out how my left hand works, how my right hand works by strumming. And then all those moments, maybe for second, third, fourth grade, lead them up to fifth grade, where now they're able to they've figured out some of those fine motor skills. They've gathered a little bit of dexterity, and then now they can play guitar. Um, so those instruments are fun. And then going back maybe before we were talking about chord progressions, that's such a great way for a student to see a chord progression in action, because now I'm going to use my C, my F, and my G chords, and I'm going to be able to play along with a song like One Love. Um, and the music that they're playing makes sense.
Do you have any budgetary concerns regarding music? Because typically I find, I don't know if that's the case anymore, but usually the arts and the music are some
Mhm.
of the first things to go. So is
Yeah.
that ever in the back of your mind, or you just do what you do day to day and not worry?
I'm in a very special position to be able to work in a district as large as mine. Um, so so there's that. I have a very well-funded music and arts department that I'm not terribly concerned about what access my students have. Most of the things that we want, we're able to get. But I know that there are so many schools where that's not always the case, where other things have to come first sometimes. Um, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to just give my students the things that they want, to give them the experiences that they want, that ultimately make school a little bit more enjoyable. It's a place where they want to be every day. They're doing things that they want to do is awesome. But I feel for the teachers who are struggling with that. I feel for the teachers who maybe it seems like a community is against that department, where something else feels like it's a little bit higher on the pedestal. Um, that's hard, and I wish that we could have equity in the arts, something to have it as equal as um, other core academic subjects. I think the arts deserves that.
What's the role of YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and other streaming platforms? What role does that play in your classroom
So I'm
or your lesson planning?
yeah, I'm not a Spotify user. I don't use it. Um, but I think things like YouTube, I think things like Spotify, again, it opens up the student's world to not just the music that they're getting um on a CD. I don't know anybody who's purchased a CD in the last 10 years,
Hmm.
maybe. Um, but
Although I will say records
records are
seem
making
to
a
be
comeback.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
People say there's a richer sound
Yeah.
on a record and the feel of it and
Mhm.
the cardboard and the covers and
Yeah. Yeah, it's all unique to that art. I think that brings in that multisensory thing that music can feel. Uh, but I love using things in downtime. Maybe I have a couple of students hanging out during lunch. One of the things I like to do is use the Sound Garden. Sound Garden are you familiar with it?
I am a
A little
bit
bit.
familiar with it.
So I mean, just the ability for students to look at the world and tune into a local radio station and hear something they've never heard before is cool. We can talk about what do you like, what don't you like, would you listen to this again? And again, just validating their responses is something that, yeah, you can have that experience. You're allowed to not like something. You're allowed to love something. And so that's where I see that value of music technology, of just opening up the world.
Do you have movement in your classes?
Of course.
A
Yeah, you
song
can't
comes
expect
on
a
and
5-year-old to sit there for 30 minutes by himself and not move. M music and movement go hand in hand. Uh, whether you're sitting and watching something live, maybe you're listening to a recording, 9 out of 10 times you're going to look around and you're going to see somebody moving. It might be something small, like just tapping their foot, maybe patting their leg. You might see people clapping. You might see people swaying their whole body. Dancing, all those things. When I'm looking at it as a music teacher, especially with the younger kids, we're developing gross motor skills. When we're using instruments, we're developing fine motor skills. There's a lot of, again, more connectedness that music brings to the development of a whole child. Um, I mean, at 1 o'clock, the kindergartners are ready to go home, right? So just that opportunity for movement, it just kind of gets some of the sillies out. Maybe if they're having a slump, doing a little bit of movement gets the sillies back in, and then they can act like 5-year-olds again. That's how I use movement.
about 10 to 12 years ago, I was a paraprofessional. I was working in a school for students living with autism, and there was a musical program. And so students that were tactile, students that were full of energy, they were able to put that energy into the music and talking about movement for some of a lot of the students, it was very beneficial. You have any experience with music education and students with disabilities?
Yeah, I think one of those modern band groups that I was talking about earlier, when I watch, well, not even just limited to that, because they, yeah, music, it comes to everybody differently. For some people, it's natural. For some people, it's not. The same thing can be said about subjects like ELA, like math, like social studies, like science. Um, but to see those moments where maybe a student who does have a disability suddenly feels connected, that's the golden moment. Um, the
Have you had a
opportunity,
moment like that?
yeah, yeah. Um, to see someone who comes to school with um, an emotional disturbance that is causing the brain to react to situations differently, to see those students light up because they've been maybe ostracized by by everyone, seemingly everyone. Now they're playing the same song on the saxophone, or they're playing something in tandem with. Maybe it's not always the same. We differentiate our instruction to make sure that it meets the needs of the kids that are in front of us. And so to find out what makes them tick, and then to capitalize on that moment so that they can feel connected to others is really, really special. Um, to to see them communicate in a brand new way, in a way that maybe doesn't require words, is special.
Music is very therapeutic.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering, as you were drawn into music as a young person, was it ever because of its therapeutic benefits, or even as an adult now?
That's somewhere where I try to leave that to the music therapist.
Hmm.
I can understand the idea of something feeling therapeutic.
I mean, for you on a personal level,
Yeah.
did music ever serve as a big therapy outlet?
Music was the place where I felt successful in school. Music reminded me that I was good at something. I was fairly average and unmotivated in high school when it came to other subject areas. But music is what I really wanted to do. Um, it was the place where I felt home. It's the place where I felt comfortable just exploring. I that that I guess if I were to look at that as a therapeutic technique, sure. Just that ability to start feeling success somewhere else, to feel like I stood out in a good way is those are the memories that I have from my upbringing. It was just the place where I felt me.
So you said it helped you to stand out in a good way. So does that mean in your other classes you acted out, you were cut up?
No, I was really quiet. I yeah, maybe I felt like I stood out. Maybe I felt a little anxious. Probably looking back, no one paid me much mind. But you have there is the ability to stand out in a negative way. That was never my spotlight. No, 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 no. Um, but but in music, I was allowed to feel successful. And, maybe I got jealous of the kids who maybe honor roll seemed to come easy for. Um, and if music was a place where music seemed to come easy for me, maybe there's the possibility that, kids were working as hard in ELA or math as I was in music. And that's where I was using that motivation. That's where it came from.
Earlier you talked about comfort,
Hmm.
comfort in music.
I felt comfortable in that space. Um, it was the place where I just felt like I belonged, I guess, because it it's almost like a language. I just felt special that way. Music was something that spoke to me easily. Um, I never really worried about like, oh my God, learning this instrument is so hard. Learning this is so hard. Um, it was I'm not saying it was easy. I mean, yes, it felt easy to me, but it wasn't effortless. Um, I, I was able to draw lots of connections from instrument to instrument to instrument to experience to experience. My my dad loves telling a story of when I was a kid and my sister was a flute player in band, and I got my hands on her flute when she brought it home, and I just kind of started wiggling around with it, figured it out really, really quickly. Just some basic tones. Um, but maybe within a half hour, I was coming up like, "Oh my God, look at this! I just figured this out." And my dad said, "How'd you figure that out? You've never played a flute." And my answer was something along the lines of, "It's exactly the same." Just for me, that's where I felt really successful. I felt super connected. Finding those other musicians in that program that I was able to feel the same relationship with
Can you say
is
that again? I'm sorry.
taking the moment to feel where others who were successful in that music program and being able to connect with those other successful people made me feel better.
You mean
Um,
classmates?
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Being being at their side, being at the the solo competitions, the band festivals, the choir festivals, being able to experience those things with those people. I wasn't getting the experience of that in a varsity sport. I wasn't a sports player. Um, but I was getting those experiences in music. So finding again, finding those opportunities for students to feel connected is important to their success.
So was music the clique, the music kids? Was that the clique you were part of?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know. I was the kid that was rolling down Main Street with J John Williams playing in the car. Like, that was our thing. Yeah, listening to something new. Uh, most of the CDs that I'd make when I was younger would include, I don't know, everything under the sun. But there was always like a couple of tracks that were soundtrack music or classical music or something like that. Because it was a new experience. It was something that other people weren't listening to. I loved hearing that.
If you were successful in one of the other core content areas, for me, it was social studies. Would music still have a role in your life? Because you talked about earlier
Yeah.
a big way that you became interested in music was that was an area where you were very successful. So now, if we flip it around, let's say
Got
you're very successful in social studies, would there be music?
it. So another place where I did find a fair amount of success. I was a French minor through college. I loved learning French when I was in school. Um, and there was a moment in college where I was like, you know what, maybe I'm not quite cut out for this music program. Because I went from being a top-notch musician in high school to all of a sudden being with all of the other top-notch musicians from their high schools. Um, and that's a learning moment to figure out, maybe uh, whatever I had thought maybe was the top when I was 17 years old, that wasn't the top. No, I learned that really fast. Um, and I did get frustrated in that community. It
Which
can
community?
in being in the music programs. It can get it can get cutthroat. If you're looking for the first chair position in orchestra, you know that you have to take someone else out almost. You have to practice harder than they did. You have to learn more than they did. You have to do more, more, more. So I got maybe I got a little tired of that. I got frustrated with it. Um, the things that the things that came easy earlier were now presented with challenge. And I needed to overcome that hurdle. That's something else I've learned. Uh, but when I look back on other content areas, if I was successful in English, would I become an English teacher? Maybe. I don't know. The only other moment that I had and I was ready to go was I wanted to become a foreign language teacher. I that to me would have been fun. Um, but I don't regret not doing it. I'm in the position of a lifetime. I love what I do now.
And do you have other pursuits outside of the classroom related to your interest in music?
I play in a local wind ensemble. I play we play a couple concerts a year. But no, I love sharing my experience with the kids. I love being able to take them to places like the Philharmonic Orchestra, taking them to go see a musical with their peers. I love doing that. Um, but in my free time, I spend trying to be social. I got my friends. I We do what we can. A lot of us are spread out across the state now, so staying local and building up a new community of people that's what I've been doing. I play trivia locally, so that's kind of been my recent gig, I suppose.
Interestingly enough, my wife's
Yeah.
the musically inclined individual of
Okay.
the family. She grew up in Greece and she recalls she went to Germany to visit some friends. And before you know, she came back and all her fingernails were painted black, and she was listening to Slipknot and all that kind of
Mhm.
music. And so it was 1 year before COVID. So maybe I was 34, 35 at the time. And not only did I go to my first concert, but I must have went to two or three of my first concerts in that particular summer. And so it was all the hardcore music that I had never really known.
Mhm.
Slipknot, Nine Inch Nails. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm missing a lot of the other groups, but that was my experience. That was how I guess we didn't connect through music, but my wife introduced me to new forms of music that maybe I
Yeah.
would have never uh, entertained or explored had I not uh, met her. So I think two of the concerts we went to were at Jones Beach, and
Hmm.
then there was one in Brooklyn down by South Street Seaport. They have an outside music venue,
Hmm.
and so it's very interesting.
I'm
I mean,
curious, how did you feel having never listened to that music before? How did you feel walking into those spaces?
it was interesting. My wife and we were with another couple. So my wife and the other wife, they were dancing, going nuts. My wife was bopping her head up and down,
Mhm.
and I sort of felt, I sort of felt different at that time. Not that I wasn't accepted, but it was a whole new music and group of people. And I teased my wife leading up to the concert. I said, I'm going to go down into the mosh pit. I'm going to mosh with everybody. He said, no, you're not. It's too dangerous. I think my wife, when she was younger, she probably did the mosh pit. But when I was, I was at Jones Beach, it was raining, and these people did just down in the front, moshing all over the place, kicking water, people being rough. And so it was interesting. It was
Yeah.
something new. I listen to some of that music now. I'll be going to a personal training session later today, and I'll be listening to, that kind of music. I like soundtracks. I like to listen to the Rocky soundtrack to get oomph
Yeah.
and ready to go. I like to listen to techno. So for me, it's a real emotional connection. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that songs. I found out later in life that I like Ozzy Osbourne, and so I don't know that I necessarily listen to it for the words, but the background, the pumping of the
The feel.
music and the instruments and the feeling that it evokes. I think that's where I connect most. So, like I said, I listen to a wide array of music. I listen to all the previous music I said. I like Broadway soundtracks. I like listening to the music. And I distinctly remember watching an interview with John Williams when he was doing one of his uh, background music. He was conducting a band, but also at the time he was watching a little television of
Hmm.
the movie scene.
I got
So
to see
that,
one of those with him.
oh, really?
Yeah, he did a live concert with the New York Phil when I was in high school.
And it was interesting because when a scene required a certain level of oomph, he knew to tell, to
Yeah.
being, a grand noise. And then there were other times when he knew it had to be softer. And
Yeah.
so, that I guess that was part of my music instruction that I was exposed to. When I
Hmm.
was in school, elementary school, I think or junior high school, I wanted to follow my brother's footsteps for whatever reason. And he grew up playing the tuba, the big.
Hmm.
So I just struggled because I wasn't able to bring the clarinet or the flute home to practice because you're talking about this big
Right.
gargantuan instrument. So I didn't really follow through, with school band. But I guess you could say I dabbled in music, and maybe now I'll go type into AI, create a song about such and such just to see
Yeah.
what comes out. As we wrap up here, why are you the New York State Teacher of the Year? Did somebody nominate you? Did your school nominate you?
So my story kind of going back to my early years of teaching, the mentor that I had in the Rochester City School District, she nominated me for the new teacher of the year award back when I first started, and
For your school district?
for my school district, yeah.
Mhm.
So they nominate a handful of teachers who are intern level teachers, and um, so that to me is kind of where it was a point of validation, kind of reminded me, oh, you you know what you're doing. Um,
Mhm.
and during COVID, my district started an Educator of the Year award to recognize not just the first year teachers, but the people who've been doing it longer. So I was nominated by a colleague, and with that nomination and having gone through that process, the district sponsored my nomination to the New York State Teacher of the Year program. So I was able to walk into it with their nod of approval, and after several essays, several responses to questions, interviews, observations, that I was able to find myself in this position, and it's really exciting.
And so now you're part of a new community,
Part
a
of a very new
fellow.
community.
I've interviewed previously or sat down with previous teachers of the year. I
Mhm.
sat down with I'm gonna mess this up, but the Virginia Teacher of the Year
Okay.
from a couple years back. It's a diverse community of people who come together. I know each state nominates
Yes.
a teacher, and then there's certain responsibilities that come along with being the teacher of the year for
Mhm.
that particular year. I think it's you collaborating with your peers, you're going to different roundtables and discussions, and so that must keep you busy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving the community that I've been able to walk into this position with. Not only the previous New York State Teachers of the Year, all the people who've come before me have just been incredibly welcoming. They provide a wild amount of mentorship, just to help me figure out this new role. I've only been officially in this title for the last month and 20 days. So one of the things I said the other day was like, there's some really big shoes that I could fill and start walking in, but I haven't quite found the shoes yet. They're somewhere in the closet. Um, there's a multitude of doors that are available now for me to open, and it's very exciting. It's also a little bit intimidating because you don't know what door to open. And some of the doors you don't even know that they're there yet. So I've been able to learn from a lot of them, talk with them about what this looks like on a state level, and also really shifting my views away, not just from the music classroom that I teach in, but really take a view of that is encompassing of our entire state. I'm able to be a representative of all of our state's teachers of the years, not just us, not just me, not just my other music colleagues in my district, not just music colleagues across the state, but all of us. And I think one of the things that draws us all together is the ability to form those meaningful connections, those meaningful relationships in our classrooms, in ways that gets kids excited and motivated about learning.
Very good. So we're gonna wrap up now with our laser round. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. Just answer with the first word that comes to your mind. Here we go. Favorite
Okay.
food?
Favorite food. I just thought of guacamole. I don't know why, but that's it.
Favorite vacation spot?
New England.
Favorite book?
I favorite book, The Giver.
Favorite show?
That's a tricky one. I don't know. The Office.
Oh, The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, and this should be one that you should be able to answer right away. Favorite song?
Favorite song. Oh my
Mr.
God, that's
Music,
really
Mr.
hard.
Music, Mr. Music Teacher.
That's really hard. Because it's so dependent on what else is happening. I'm just
Well,
gonna go.
the joy you
Yeah.
experience after this interview, having sat down with me, what song would be your favorite?
So a song I just wrote down, I needed to come up with entrance music, and I used the song I Feel Better When I'm Dancing by Megan Trainor because it was a song that my ukulele ensemble had just performed. And it brings, I mean, it gets you excited, it gets you motivated, but I can also see the faces of my kids playing it.
Very good.
Yeah.
So this concludes our most recent segment of Gersh Talks. Thank you to Mr. Zachary Arenz, the 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year. Please look out for future Gersh Talks that'll be coming up down the road. My name is Dr. Gershowitz, and thank you, Mr. Arenz, for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. This was a great talk.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it. Thank you.
Our pleasure.